Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the All New 52 podcast. I am Joe.
And I'm Caleb.
And today, and every day, and every episode, we talk about comics. But today's episode is on the Judas Contract.
We don't do this every day, Joe.
Every episode that you see this, that's what you think.
You're my friend. Unlike the Teen Titans, who are having some trouble deciding who is and who should not be their friends.
They are being deceived.
So, I wanted to check out this story because it's obviously super iconic, super famous. Plus, Marv Wolfman is just a really interesting writer. George Perez also did the art, and he obviously kind of instilled very iconic, if not adhered to, designs for the Teen Titans. I think they're very recognizable in this, even though you
this
see
is
them
the
in
base
any
designs
media.
that you'll see everywhere.
Yeah, but in any media, they'll be pretty drastically changed.
Yeah,
now.
that's very true.
It's not going to stand up. It's very flimsy.
It's a paperback. So yeah, this is the most popular Teen Titans story. Don't even try.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
I don't think I couldn't name another Teen Titans story off the top of my head.
I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
So
The
Lazarus contract. So yeah, going into it, this actually isn't a nice compact story as it would appear to be, or like lead you to believe that it is.
It's told over a long stretch of time.
It's a year in universe, so I'm not really sure how long it was.
Can you flash that up on screen? Because it's like such obvious things that I should know.
Do a little
that I
research
don't.
on.
I mean, I read this first, so I did my research like 2 weeks ago.
That's true. I took a little bit longer this time around.
But yeah, it came out, and Marv Wolfman was basically like, Kitty Pryde had been introduced in the X-Men. A lot of people were comparing this book to the X-Men, kind of calling it a ripoff, and he was like, you know what? All these people like this sweet 14-year-old girl. I'm going to do a sweet 14-year-old girl in my book.
Who's not so
and
sweet.
make her the worst person ever. And that was kind of the spark of the idea. But obviously, there's also just a lot of other important stuff. Kid Flash leaves the team.
Nightwing is born.
Nightwing is born. There's a lot of stuff. Plus, we get Slade's backstory. I'm not sure if that's the first time we got it. But it at least reads that way.
There is a lot of status quo changing events that happened that I was not aware happened within the time frame of this.
Yeah, which I think you can only get in a story if it is spread out
over a long course of time.
Yeah, which is something I kind of like about this. I think you have more freedom to do that if you've been writing an established book that like your name is attached to. This is your book, which I don't feel like we get as much of anymore. There are, of course, exceptions to that. The guy who was on Spider-Man forever.
Slot.
Yeah, Slot. But I feel like that's a very unique opportunity for a writer to get. But I feel like Wolfman and Perez really put their mark on this story.
On Teen Titans history. I mean, they did a good job. They wrote the Teen Titans story, which...
So what did you think of it? Because you've given me some vague, cryptic, like little bite-sized thoughts as you've gone along, but I haven't gotten a really good idea of whether you liked it or not.
So are we going overall, or just like we're jumping into pros and whatnot?
It's your show, Joe.
That's true. You were asking me the question, though. I'm referring to you as my question.
I'm just curious what your overall impression of it was, and that can help inform conversation as it goes.
You know, you were comparing it to X-Men, and the comparisons between the writers and whatnot, how the viewers were doing it, or the readers were doing it at the time. I see it a lot because I see a lot of God Loves Man Kills in this. I think because we read that so recently, I'm like, man, Slade gets this backstory chapter at like exactly the point in the story that Stryker got his backstory chapter. Vaguely similar with both of them being ex-military.
Yeah. I think it's...
No N-word drops, though.
Thank goodness. Although Beast Boy, you never know.
Sorry, the Changeling.
The Changeling.
You will refer to him as such. Horny Changeling.
He had to change his name because Changeling got canceled. He had to rebrand.
Yeah, he got Me Too'd because he was hitting on everyone.
Yeah, so is that a good thing or a bad thing for you? Because I obviously really like.
It's just an observation.
Yeah, I really like 80s X-Men, so it was like a comparison that would help me get into it.
I don't know if I'm more forgiving of 80s X-Men for being so talky, because it's like, this is the X-Men. It's higher brow. It's a metaphor, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Teen Titans. These are kids. Where, like, 80s wordiness is something I've never really been in love with. I'm really not in love with it here.
I wonder how you'll feel when we eventually get to New Mutants, which is the teen book for X-Men in the 80s. I wonder if you'll have that problem with some of those characters too.
Yeah, overall, just observations like that, it's kind of what I expect from a book of this age.
Yeah.
Like art style, it's that 80s art house style. Nothing that's like sticks out really as a genre or era defining story.
Okay, so if we want to jump into positives,
or we can do a plot. There is that. There's a lot that goes on in this.
Just figured most people get the basic gist.
Oh, there's a basic gist, but there's way more that goes on.
Yeah, so the basic gist is that Tara is a spy for Deathstroke,
which they do not hide within the first 5 pages.
I love it. It's very open and honest.
It's weird. Like you don't. There's no revelation. Like there's no like, oh man, there's no twist. Well, and that's, which I'm so used to there being a twist.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of the character, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think the point is that there isn't a twist. She is evil. Like, and people were apparently really mad about this and like sent them death threats and stuff, which I'm sure happens at any point in a shift in a popular comic. But like, what were these people thinking? Obviously, Tara is evil. From the first issue in this, like, she's trying to
infiltrate.
Yeah, well, she's successfully infiltrating, trying to kill Deathstroke while also helping him do it, like during their training sequences. She's really in that aspect, it's an interesting story. I don't think she's the interesting part of it though.
No. Tara's bland.
I think her role in it is interesting.
Okay. So the first 3 issues, I believe, there's 2 different stories going on, or series that are collected here. It's like New Teen Titans and then Tales of the Teen Titans or something like that. And I believe Tales of the Teen Titans is the Deathstroke, or the Judas Contract proper name story. For these first 3 issues, you find out the setup. And then you get a mission where they go fight Hive and Brother Blood.
Well, they fight Brother Blood first. And
who is part of Hive, correct? Or am I merging that with my knowledge of the show?
Not in this story. Okay. Maybe in later Teen Titans, but not in this. But they go fight him, and it's just included in this because it also has some important stuff with Tara doing getting some key pieces of information. And then there's the Hive part, where Deathstroke is like, okay, we've got what we need. It's time to kidnap the Teen Titans for Hive because his son was supposed to do it. Then his son died. And meanwhile, his wife or ex-wife and their youngest son is going and trying to stop him. And it ends up with all the Teen Titans get captured except for Nightwing, who unveils his outfit.
That 80s outfit.
Yeah, very, the disco collar, very fun. And he and Jericho go save the rest of the Teen Titans, and it's revealed that Tara's a terrible person, and then she's killed.
So yeah, lots of stuff going on. Like Kid Flash leaving the team in the first issue.
Wonder Woman or Wonder Girl
getting married.
Yeah,
planning her wedding.
Well, and kind of stepping up into as the team leader.
Yeah, because you get this hilarious sequence where Robin's like, I'm a little too old for this. As I remove my metaphorical cape, I also remove my physical cape. And as I strip down, literally to just the leotard, where there's a metaphor for every piece of clothing that I have taken off, I look ridiculous. And also my time as Robin has ended.
I like that scene a lot.
It's so silly.
It is. It is. I think they kind of hang a lampshade on that by having Tara be like egging him on.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about the character? Well, we can continue on plot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the plot's too complicated?
Maybe. I don't know if I can like knock it as a collection, because with this kind of thing, if you leave out that first issue, like you don't know Tara's a bad guy. I mean, you find out at some point. You don't have that leading thing. And then Judas Contract,
why Robin's not in the team.
Or why Robin's like Judas Contract proper, like Robin's missing for like a good majority of it, and then like they're speaking of other things that have gone on. Like you kind of need all this context and background, but it's a lot. Like the Brother Blood stuff ends up feeling so disconnected at the end of it all, and it's kind of like comparing the Killing Joke adaptation where they made that 30-minute Batgirl scene to like try to give her a character for the second parts, which I feel like they needed to do.
At least the Brother Blood part has relevance.
Yeah, but this is the top of the head comparison I'm making, where like
it's like
they feel a little too separate.
Not to bring everything back to the thing we will never review on here, the Dark Phoenix saga. But it's like, you know, how in the middle of that, she's just going up against Mastermind, and like there's this whole like Hellfire Club sequence in it. Like, you kind of need that because that informs how Jean is changing as the Phoenix, but also it's not directly related to the Phoenix saga.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of a filler episode that has a scene at the very end to tie back into the plot.
Yeah, I don't think it's as much filler as it is.
No.
This is its own story.
Yeah, I don't want to.
It's like a Fabergé egg of like stories within stories, which I appreciate.
I think if I was into it, I would appreciate it a little more. But it's a little much.
Yeah, especially starting out first thing Teen Titans.
Yeah,
and that's the thing I was going to ask you before was you grew up watching the show, and how do you think that affected your reading of this and specifically the characters? Because they're very different.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at separating, and also I've seen a million adaptations of these characters at this point. This story has been adapted so many times.
If you're going to adapt any of these characters, you adapt this story.
Yeah, you got the Teen Titans show. They did it first. You got the DC animated movie universe. They had an entire movie dedicated to Judas Contract. You got
Young Justice
season 3 does their spin on it.
Have they done it in Titans? Do you know? I know
they might have done it in season 2. I haven't watched season 2. They're gonna do it. Like you just don't not do this story.
I mean, even Teen Titans Go, Tara is a character. You know, it's not like this story, but she is.
Please do this story in Teen Titans Go.
In the sense that she's just a terrible person, and there is no redeeming qualities.
Really?
In Teen Titans Go, she's just the villain. In that sense, it is kind of more accurate to this than the other ones that try to make her sympathetic.
Yeah, well, going back to what I was saying, they do these adaptions and they'll change their own things. But like I'm pretty good at separating. Like I'm not constantly comparing things. But this makes it a little hard because there's been 50 different adaptions. I'm like, okay, I can see what they pulled and what certain aspects improved on, which like this might be one of the weaker adaptions on the totem pole. It's not an adaptation, but this might be one of the weaker tellings of the story on the totem pole because of that.
Interesting.
Because there's been time to change, improve, or possibly not. And
I think
show the weaknesses of the story when you leave out certain things.
I think a lot of times comic adaptations can do that. I don't think they always do. I think rarely they do, but I think they can. I'm not sure about that here. Honestly, I think just between this and then the animated show, and then if we want to count Teen Titans Go, those episodes, I think they're all on par. I think they all do. I think they kind of balance out.
I think for the most part it's on par until the ending, which we can get to that later on. I think we've done a decent enough job plot synopsising this mammoth.
Yeah, and I would say about the characters, I really enjoyed. Like automatically, I felt like I kind of got their personalities. I like that they were kind of fighting with each other a little bit. Just in a
they
playful way.
they kind of feel like they feel more like later teens. Like,
Yeah.
and they clearly are a little bit older, and there's a very wide variety of ages going on here, where like Cyborg's like a very much an older brother who's like kind of, I don't know, he kind of seems a little tired of having to hang out with the kids all the time.
Yeah.
Wally's way older than all of these guys at this point, and he's like, I'm too old for this now.
Wonder Girl is getting married.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I
you
feel
have
like,
the whole Robin being like, I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah,
I've been doing this since I was 8.
I feel like Dick and Starfire's relationship is much more mature than you usually see it. But then you do have Beast Boy and Tara are much younger.
They are kids.
Yeah. Beast Boy is probably the one who's the weirdest. Like, we kind of joked about how he's canceling, but it's just almost everything.
He's flirting with everyone.
And it's not flirting most of the time.
Oh no, it's like
full on sexual harassment, turning into animals and groping people.
It's weird. And it's even like, I say it's even weird. It's just because his name is Changeling at this point still, where I'm like, such a dumb name.
Yeah, I mean, most comic book characters have had 50 billion names.
Yeah, I know.
So,
and things change for the better.
Yeah, I enjoyed the team dynamic a lot, and I think because they're constantly kind of ribbing each other, it makes sense that Tara could sneak in here. I will say the one character who, besides Changeling, who kind of sticks out is Raven, just because
she looks like an old lady.
Well, yeah, she's
an old hag.
She looks old, but also, and I guess this is because of the Trigon stuff that was happening before this, she's not very useful to the team.
She spends her time meditating, being like, if I'm not under constant control, something bad's gonna happen.
Which I think is fine.
Yeah,
like,
you can't have Raven be overpowered.
Yeah, and I think she often is overpowered. Mm-hmm. And I love Raven because it's the magic side of the DC universe. So she's the character I'm drawn to. And I like this where she is she has the most wisdom out of the team because she can kind of tell that something's up with Tara, but also she doesn't have necessarily the strength to do anything about that. Mm-hmm. I kind of enjoy that kind of dynamic.
How do you feel about our two villains that we got, Mr. Brother Blood and Senor Slade?
Brother Blood's fun. He's goofy.
I think he's perfect as a side story villain.
Yeah, and you know, he's in more of this and less of it. I kind of liked the story where you know, he was kind of paying off these politicians and rigging elections. Like, I could see the full-on Brother Blood story being fun and enjoyable. What we get here is just basically the bad guy from Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
I also think that's fun. But the real stuff here is Deathstroke, and Deathstroke is great. His backstory.
You aren't like the biggest Deathstroke guy either, are you?
No, I'm fine with Deathstroke. I think he can be overused.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think there have been times when he has been overused, and I've ranted about that, mm-hmm. and I think you've internalized that as me not liking Deathstroke.
Yeah, I guess so.
But there's something undeniably cool about Deathstroke.
Yeah.
And I think this really nails it. I like his backstory. It maybe goes on a little long.
Goes on really long.
And it's not necessarily the most interesting setting of the story, but Deathstroke's cool, man. Mm-hmm. What can I say? The best things about this are Deathstroke's not his backstory, but just his presence. And I think Jericho's an interesting addition to the team. And of course,
he's so out of nowhere. I didn't know he existed.
From Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, when I got this, he's on the cover, and I was like, who is this guy?
That is him.
Yeah, and I was like, who is this guy? He's created by George Perez to be a mute character who Wolfman was not allowed to do thought bubbles for. So it's solely an artist type character, which I think is really cool.
Have any more things you like to add on to?
I'm sure
you've said already.
I'm sure stuff will come up. In general, I enjoy the characters. I enjoy the I'd say the second half of the story more, but it's not
definitely.
that I disenjoy the Brother Blood stuff. It's just that second half is the most intriguing stuff. So yeah, I'm sure more stuff will come up as we talk, but those are my positives that stick out.
So jumping into the flip side, the yang of the of the pros, the negatives. Starting off, I think the whole kidnapping of the Titans is some of the lamest and most contrived ways of catching the good guys.
I'd say there's one that is, and that's Cyborg sits down in a chair. Like everyone else, like they're kind of playing off of like aspects of them.
Yeah,
and
they're still silly.
It's like Starfire gets a package from Robin. It's like, okay, manipulating that relationship. Yeah. Changelings is the best.
He's like mailing off fan mail, but the envelope is like chloroform, basically.
It's like that scene in Cats where McCavity is trying to get all the cats on the boat, so he like appeals to their vices. But then you have Cyborg, and
who
what
just
is
sits
his
down in the
vice?
chair.
He really loves sitting in that chair, Slade. That's what I got for you. I've been infiltrating the team for a year. That is his favorite chair. Oh no, I love it. It's hilarious. But other than that, I think they all work.
Deathstroke also not being able to catch a Nightwing with a sprained ankle is a little lame for Deathstroke the Terminator.
Yeah, but they kind of go into that he's kind of off his game.
Yeah, it feels a little contrived. After all those dumb or does that come before or after you find out how they were kidnapped?
No, that issue opens up with Deathstroke smashing through Dick's window. And then Dick, and I like how this is told. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit more forgiving of how silly some of them are. You see Dick doing detective work to figure out how each person got kidnapped.
The detective work was good. I do like whenever Dick shows his Batman side. I like it a lot. But yeah, just after a fumbling thing, he's like, there's civilians around, but I am a mercenary in my full costume in broad daylight running through the streets. And then followed by this hilarious way of catching the team is, it's just a product of its time. Where this was what they did.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I think there is equally contrived stuff within modern comics.
Oh well, yeah, fair enough.
Just skinned behind modern art.
Fair enough.
And less words.
I kind of want to save my last negative for because it is kind of the culmination.
Yeah, I think we have the same last negative.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll throw out some small things that kind of bothered me. There were some small parts in the art where like the coloring was mismatched, or like the character who was supposed to be talking just wasn't there. And just weird stuff that I usually don't notice. It's like when a boom like gets into a shot, or a Starbucks cup gets into a shot.
It's something that's like, that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah,
like,
but usually I like my mind just kind of skips over that stuff. So it was weird that I kept noticing it here.
Tara's got some weird facial expressions. Like I think like overall there's some sameness to the facial expressions. She's got the weirdest ones though, where she constantly has these like pursed lips where her teeth are showing. But then her mouth just gets huge at points.
She does have moments where she has to emote more than I'd say other members of the Titans.
Lots of close-up shots on her too.
There are just some small taste things that I feel kind of even weird. The changeling stuff is weird and gross, and I don't like it. Starfire's outfit.
It starts off like where it's fine, where it's just like, he's a kid or whatever, and then he is straight up groping like all the female characters.
Starfire's outfit just looks dumb. Her costume,
her hair looks dumb.
Yeah, I don't think there are many good designs of Starfire, and this isn't one of them. But it's not enough to distract me. It's just that's what it is. And
I'm so numb to Starfire having bad costumes at this point. Yeah. That was not like that. Didn't take me out of it.
I'd say they're like some small taste things here and there. That kind of bugged me, but nothing as big as I'm sure what we're going to talk about now. Well, take it away, Joe.
There's a little more like 80s, very wordy. This is, I think, excessively wordy at some points. Where you're making a good. I was talking about it a little before we started filming, maybe a couple days ago. Who knows?
It was last night.
Last night, that's when it was. Where you're saying how 80s text, they were wordy, but it wasn't overall like plot importance.
Yeah,
like it was kind of flavor.
It's flavor or character, I'd say, is primarily usually what it is.
But there was just a little too much of it.
Yeah.
Especially with a big team book like this, you can have so many words on a page, and they put as many words as they can.
And there definitely are parts where they're explaining stuff as they're doing them. The Blade Runner narration, as I like to call it. That's more of the product of its time for me when they do that. I'm fine with the dialogue being super wordy. And I feel like the narration, which is something we're like, omniscient narration is completely wiped out of comics now. So
that's something that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and I think it's used sparse enough here that it didn't bother me. But those stuff can add to the words of a page.
It does. The narrator kind of bothers me at some points where maybe they weren't using it. Maybe I just took it as this, where they would have the narration boxes in different colors. So I would take that to be like, oh, Dick's in the scene. It's blue. This is Dick's thoughts or something. And then it switches perspectives.
I think that's our modern reading conception coming into it, because that's what modern comics do. I think that's just in X-Men comics, some fans call it the angry Claremontian narrator. I think that's the passive Mark Wolfman narrator.
Yeah, other than that, just I'm not into 80s comics for a reason. Like, this time is not for me.
I am, and I don't know why, but I totally I totally get where you're coming from.
So the big negative. So Tara dies in a fit of insane rage and jealousy. They make a couple points, Slade especially, to go like, yeah, she's not just evil, she's insane, let me tell you. And she dies, and at the very end, there's a funeral for her, and they put up a little headstone for her, being like, she was a Titan from this year to this year. Like, we'll remember her as a hero, basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the specific line in it that bugged me. Oh, there's just a lot of narration here, so I won't go into all of it. But it's basically just being like, she was bad from the beginning. She could only be bad. That was her destiny, to just be evil.
Because she was insane.
Yeah, and like, I'm just not sure how I feel about that.
Okay, so you do have a little bit different take on it than I do.
What's your problem with it?
My problem with it is, so really the team gets kidnapped, and Nightwing's the one doing all the discovering of, it was like Tara. Tara was the mole the entire time. And after the fact, you have the Tara fight where she's fighting against them, and some of the Titans are like, but I'll remember you as the hero that you were. And she was never a hero. Like, she was playing the part, but she was here, and the way she plays it off is, I was playing you the entire time. Like, there are moments where you're like, oh, maybe she is getting to know the team. But then when it cuts to her perspective, she's like, yeah, they're falling for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
I mean, I know you have, because I've met them. And I have, because I've met them. We've had friends who are just dicks. And there's nothing, like, good about those friendships or redeemable. I still think back on, like, good memories of those times. Mm-hmm. I still have, like, sometimes doubts about whether or not I should have, cut off some people, even though I ultimately stand by that. I think those were wise decisions. I think that's the same thing here, especially with someone like Beast Boy or even Starfire, who I think is rather naive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense that they kind of are more willing to forgive certain aspects of her.
And I can get that, but it's the whole just I can have individual characters, like having it's like, maybe this is how I'll like remember it. Like, I remember the good times, maybe not her as a person, but like the good times overall. But then that last thing of the headstone, and it's like
the headstone with the awful expression.
Well, it's another one of her weird faces.
It's her doing a Pogger's face.
I mean, it's another one of the weird faces. They like remembering her as a Titan, where it's like, no, she was literally in there to destroy you. Well, which is where I think my adaptation thing from earlier, where I was like, there's aspects that I think they did way better. Where, I mean, I know you don't like the Terra arc and the 2002 series, whatever year it was, the Teen Titans animated show.
I don't like a lot of that show. There's nothing special about me not liking that arc.
Yeah, and I do agree that arc has a lot of problems. I like the idea of Tara's fighting with herself over this. She's not coming into this as a villain. She actually joined the team as good guy.
You want
and
her
there's
more
some
sympathetic.
I want her to, if they're gonna do this little epilogue thing where it's like, yeah, we'll remember her as the, not for the bad that came, but the good that it was. There has to be like some baseline good, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some revisionist history going on in that final aspect. And part of that could be for her brother, part of that could be just for like
who pops in for that last page.
ultimately just like having a good name for the Titans. Like maybe they just don't want people to know a Titan was evil.
Yeah.
But I also think like part of that also reflects that, yeah, maybe there could be a bit more of a mature way to do it. But this was kind of the first time and one of the only times this kind of thing has happened in the comic books. Usually you get characters who are, who either do fully redeem or they kind of flip back and forth. But you usually don't get characters who have every chance to redeem, get redeemed, always reject it, and then just die. Yeah,
and maybe this ending wouldn't have happened if she'd like taken out like one of the members of the team, like if she'd killed someone. She doesn't necessarily get any definingly unredeemable aspects done to her that would make it so you kind of raise an eyebrow where it's like, yeah, she killed my entire family, but I'll remember the good times.
And I think maybe that's part of the reason that I have trouble swallowing the narration that's like, she was inherently evil from the start. And like, there was no hope of redemption. Because I don't want her redeemed. I want this story playing out the way it plays out. It's just, while you have a trouble with like how they choose to remember her, I have a trouble with how the narrator chooses to frame her. I don't like this idea of people being beyond redemption, even though I do think that there are people who will never, in both in fiction and in real life, will never turn over, do good, feel remorse. I don't think that necessarily this frames that well enough, especially because it is a superhero story and superheroes primarily are paragons. So if you're going to tear down the paragon, I feel like you need to be a little bit more thoughtful in how you do it.
I mean, it's the same with Slade calling her, she's insane. You don't understand. There's not moments where you're like, oh yeah, she is a little bit unstable in that sense. She's just like, she just kind of seems like a bad guy.
And if she is just a bad guy, what is the story saying?
Yeah.
I think the fact that happened is interesting, but ultimately I'm not sure they were saying that much.
Yeah. So I think like overall, Tara the character, Tara the idea, it kind of feels low to call her a plot device, but the plot itself, the concept, like much better than the actual character implementation.
Yeah, so I guess I would say, I mean, you don't like 80s comics, so you're not going to pick up any more Teen Titans. Mm-hmm. But I will say, like, despite any reservations that we've shown, especially in this last half, or at least I've shown, I do kind of want to read more Teen Titans, and I might pick up another trade, and maybe not do it on the show, but for my own curiosity, read it, because I think there's a lot of creative decisions going on here that I'd love to see explored in other stories.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's the popular Teen Titans story for a reason. I don't think it's that overall great a story where, like we were saying, with God Loves Man Kills, to make that comparison again, like, that's a great story. I don't think this quite reaches that level of greatness.
To be fair, I don't think we should be judging things by God Loves Man Kills.
No. But I'm just like,
just being the definitive
story of the series it's in. Like, I get it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No. Got it all out. That Terra bit just bugged me a lot at the end, where I was already not really like, I was just meh with the book overall, and then that final page, and I'm like, I have thoughts.
I always want feedback on these episodes, but I think especially with this one, because I have no idea how Teen Titans fans will react to us, because I've never really heard people talk about this story besides the fact that
I don't know Teen Titans fans that are fans of the comics.
I know some. Well, I mean, not personally. I know of them.
Yeah.
But if
they definitely exist to some extent.
But I would be very curious. And of course, people who are just going to get mad at us for critiquing the story aren't going to watch to the end. But if you have, and you're a Teen Titans fan, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on the story are. As someone who's read more Teen Titans than us, has a better like contextual understanding of it. But what am I reading and you're reading for the next episode?
Oh boy.
Oh no. He said he was very excited for this.
It's kind of something I've been planning before the podcast started.
All right, go get it. All right. It's just you and me. Oh no, he bumped the camera. You're fine. It's just you and me. So we can be honest here, right? I'm your mole. I'm trying to find the way that will kill Joe. And I didn't have it till I read this story, but now I do. Here's how you can get Joe. You just have to break into our apartment, which please don't, and rig this chair. He loves this chair. He sits in this chair almost every day. So if you hook up tasers to it or whatever Slade did, you can get him.
It was just chains. It was just like handcuffs.
No, because I also knocked him out.
Yeah.
Oh, single issues. Ooh, okay. This is exciting.
So, don't have trades for this series. Read the series for a long time. And that might be a hint already for you. There's 2 different arcs I have made by 2 very different writers during 2 very different eras. And I just want...
Is this on?
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
This was... When I was a wee lad, the first comic that I read. This is the first issue I picked up.
I was hoping you'd save this to like episode 50 or something.
No. I had the thought just randomly one day where I was like, I'm going to do this. This is the time. I'd forgotten about it. And then I remembered. So we have issues 152 to 154 and then issues 198 to 200. Two very different eras, some very different art styles, some very different writing, character interactions. It's going to be a fun time.
This is like we've climbed a couple like little hills and then you've taken me to Kilimanjaro. This series, out of everything in your room, and you have a giant Spider-Man omnibus. Mm-hmm. This is the most intimidating thing you could have picked. All right.
So if you like the episode, please be sure to rate it and leave us all nice comments. 5-star reviews would be great for us and getting us up on the charts. Any feedback, positive or negative, or recommendations, you can send those to allnew52podcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
In the Green Hill Zone.